And now it's time for A Geek Speak with
GK Technologies,
Sarah and Jody.
In the fields again. I just can't wait to get in the fields again. The life I love is spreading potash for my friends, and I can't wait to get in the fields again. No, I can't wait to get in the fields again.
welcome back to A Geek Speak, and we are in part 2 of our conversation with the great Kelly Sharpe, talking about GK Technologies' new product that's going to be hitting the market, surface shaping. It is a new concept. We did have an episode 1 of this series, episode 1 and episode 2. And in episode 1, we really talked about what is surface shaping, where does it have application, and how can we apply this into our daily farming life, construction projects, all of those sorts of things. So I'm going to encourage you to go back and check that out. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some of what's going into actually making surface shaping a reality. We do need to think about the digital data a little bit different to accomplish our surface shaping. And within that, there's a definite design component that needs to be there. And once we have that design component, we need to execute that in the field. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit about today. So let's think about that design component. So with surface shaping, one of the things that's new in ADMS software is we've got a new button, a new surface shaping button. So Kelly, can you help us understand a little bit about why we have this new button, what's going on in it? This is so broad-based, and we can ask more detailed questions as we get into it, but what are we doing in there to actually create the design for a surface shaping map?
First, I have to lead off with, you had me giggling a little bit saying, it's a new surface shaping button. It's that we've had in there for about 3 years. And to be open with everybody about that, we opened up and put this button. Is sitting out there for everybody to use, demo, try at this point in time. But the concept of it is it's really in there as more of it's a beta product. It isn't quote unquote ready for release. There's bugs and functions that maybe don't work exactly as planned. It's getting really close to 100%. And when I say really close, I mean really close. But the end result of it is that the whole concept of it is again coming up with a plan. Again, the process looks something like do the watershed modeling on a field, see what's going on, figure out what you got going, what you got for water holding areas, things like that. And again, I'm approaching this from the surface drainage standpoint where we're just going to do some minor reshaping, get some grade, fill in some holes, and do stuff like that. Again, in the previous episode, we talked about other things you can do with feedlot design and building pad designs and getting into terracing and other things like that. But again, this conversation, I want to focus in on what I see the most popular thing is here and in this region, coming and moving soil from a little bit of maybe a knoll or a hillside and filling in and giving some of these bowl-shaped areas some directionality for the water. But the end result is we got to start with a point. So the surface drainage part here's your flow patterns, here's the areas that are holding water, here's your ponding areas. Now what do we do with them? And anyone who's used or seen any of our surface drainage maps, again, the bowl-shaped areas are really in your face. Hey, there's 0.6 of a foot of water being held back and held in this area. The items that I want to make really clear to everybody is that when you've seen the maps, sometimes you'll see spots on the maps that I call them freckles or just a bunch of little minor depressions. What those areas are, a lot of times are parts of the field that are really flat. They don't have directionality.
Can I ask just a clarifying question here? So you're talking, you kind of made it sound like the way that you're starting is by making a surface drainage map, right? So that you get what we call in that map, the flow accumulation lines, and then the bowl-shaped areas, which in our maps are called depressions, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, just clarifying that.
Yep.
That makes a lot of good sense. So when you're looking at that surface shaping area, those little freckle things that you're seeing in those are actually part of the depression layers that are in there. They're just those real minor ones.
And when they get grouped together real close, it probably means that you got a part of a field that's really pretty flat in most scenarios. End
Oh, that
result of
makes
it though
sense.
is putting this back in front of the farmer or the landowner, somebody who knows what's going on there, and realistically getting out a Sharpie marker and going, yeah, we want to drain this way, and we want to drain this way, and we want to fill these areas in over here, and we want directionality here. We get stuck with the combine over here all the time. Get that stuff put down, and then we can get to the designing. On the designing side of it in the software, then we can come back and say, okay, we want to build this area up. We want to stop the water from leaving. We're going to fill this ditch, and the water's not going to leave the field over here anymore. And once we get all those directionalities of that, the tools in the software, again, knowledge of understanding how to use all these tools, you say this ditch is going to disappear. We're going to wall this up. We're going to do this over here. When you get all said and done with it, all of a sudden, that oxbow that used to be in the field isn't necessarily gone 100%. I mean, it's not like we're trying to take it back. And again, if somebody wants to take it to the X extent, and that oxbow now is filled in with 2 feet of fill to make it go back this way, great, you can do that. But realistically, from the agronomic standpoint, we just want to get those things filled in enough that water's leaving those areas. You still might see some of that shape, but you're not going to be, gouging with the header when you drive through it anymore. That it's going to have the ability to leave the water will leave the field and be gone. So the end result of what we're trying to get after is to just simply make it so all these issues that we want to address are taken care of. Again, the software tools and stuff like that. I mean, we've got tools that will do cut fill hills. It'll with a depressions map, and it'll basically take these hills and remove X amount of dirt from the top of it, and again take an inch off the top of your hills and put 6 inches of fill into your depressions and give them directionality. A button that makes every part of the field go to whatever minimum grade you want to set it to. And again, all these buttons and tools and stuff that have been developed, for anyone who's ever used our software, I like to make the point to them that we essentially have roughly 6 major editing functions in the software right now, and we've found probably 1,000 or maybe even 1,000 plus different things we can do with them in combinations and ways of putting stuff together. But now with these, we've added another 8 to 10 tools. And it's a whole lot of new ideas and ways of putting things together. And again, back to the idea, new ways to use a crescent wrench. So,
and in our last podcast, we kind of visited this a little about this concept just a little bit as well. But, you were talking about that input portion of it where you make that surface drainage map, and then you actually sit down with the farmer and given the Sharpie, and draw like, what do you want going on here? So that, I mean, really, when we talk about doing this design phase, and you've talked about the need for that input, a number of different times, that's probably the place where we really got to hit that. Because, if we're going to, if the farmer is going to be working with a design expert who can create the design in the digital sense in ADMS software, that, whether it's me, whether it's Jody, whether it's you, Kelly, or anybody else on our team, we have to know what that farmer wants. And so that sitting down with a Sharpie and actually figuring out where stuff needs to go, where water needs to go across that landscape, that's a pretty important part, isn't it?
Absolutely. I have yet to find the employee to hire, or the person to go out there and that has really, really good telepathy skills. The mind reading functions, we ain't got them yet. But again, we're
Kelly
trying to give you tools.
Kelly did not hire me for that. He did not hire me for that skill at all.
it's a very true thing though. I mean, we've got ideas of what we want to do, and if you don't vocalize what they are, it's really hard to help you do them.
Let me ask you a question on this, Kelly, because I want to be clear to you, like, say if you're somebody that's never gotten a map to do with drainage or a watershed modeling map from GK, I want to make sure that you know that if you haven't done major work in that field, there's a good chance that we've got LiDAR data that we can use to pull in and make that map for you. And so I want to make sure that if you're someone looking for a surface shaping map, in this instance, you don't need to bring us with like RTK data or LiDAR data for your field. There may be extenuating circumstances, but we'll help you figure that out.
So to that point, I just have to say, if you have never tried one of our surface drainage maps, I highly suggest it. Just beware, because they are very addictive for farmers. You might get one, but then before you know it, you're going to have your whole farm done. Farmers love those. I have actually worked out deals with prospect customers where I'm like, I'll make you a deal. I'll make you a map for free. If you don't use it, we'll go our separate ways. No big deal. If you use it, you pay me for it. I have yet to not be paid for one of those.
Right. It's such a great starting point of really getting a feel for the field, right? And that's why Kelly mentioned that as, that's where we're going to start. We need to know how things work on that field in the first place. But what I want to ask you, Kelly, is as someone that's coming or planning to come to get a map made for this, what are some things that we need to communicate with you? Like what do you need to know from us? Like, what are you trying to extract from us, and how can we better communicate that to you so that we can get a better map at the end?
Sure. Obviously, the simplest one is we need to know a field location, common name, tillable acres are all things that I want for basic starting information. At that point, then I'm going to make the watershed, the surface watershed as it stands today. You're going to get a map back, and that's what Sarah was just alluding to, is making the surface drainage maps as they show in the latest and greatest LiDAR data. And then at that point, then we're going to come back and have that conversation about now, hey, where do we want to have outlets? What areas are your areas of concern? Do we want this water to run east or west? This hole that's in between these two ditches, do you want it to go east or west? Then it's just going to get to be that portion of it. And if there's specific things that you're like, no, I want to get more water over here, things like that. Again, the more information that we have, the more that we can help you to achieve with what you're trying to come up with. At the end of the day, like say, just getting the field in front of us is the big starting point, and getting that. And after that, like say, it's really just talking about outlets and trouble spots, and what parts are we wanting to, are we okay with filling in this ditch? Are we okay with getting this? Are we okay with adding a ditch over here? There may be, like I say, there may be solutions there that you don't necessarily see. And the last item to note is there's a lot of ditches in the Red River Valley that have been put in that are just too deep, and we're not going to fill them in completely, but we may be raising the bottoms of them up because now they've been cut so low that every time the township ditch gets water in it, it runs back out into the field. There's water in the township. There's water in the field. And again, those are things that have happened over time.
Awesome. Thank you.
So now we've had that conversation. We've got an idea of what we want to do with the design. What are some of the fun things in the new, been around for 3 years, surface shaping button in the software? What are some of those tools that are new and unique to the concept of surface shaping from a mapping standpoint?
From the mapping standpoint, for those of you guys that are running ADMS and you jump in there, there's a few of them that are just really simple and cool. Obviously, there's a build wall tool for anyone who's used it. If you don't want water going off of end of a field or an edge of a field, and we want to make sure it goes a specific way type of thing, you draw a line along and it'll put a wall around the outer. Wherever you drew outside the field, it just puts an outer wall on it, just stopping water from going a specific direction. Again, for those of you guys that don't use the software, doesn't make a lot of sense. But from the next part is the cut fill hills tool. It's really cool. You see every depression, you see every hill, and you can click and say, put this hill into here, put this hill into here. But you also get to choose how much cut you're going to be getting off of that. So say you got a hill that is an acre, hypothetically. 1 inch, if you said you were able to do 1 inch a cut, it would say over that 1 acre area, now I can do 1 inch a cut. And it won't take any more than that. It's going to take that 1 inch a cut. But it'll tell you how many yards of dirt are on that to be moved now. And you got a hole to fill over here. And that hole could be, 6 inches. It could be a foot deep. And it's going to tell you, man, you need 300 yards of dirt to fill this hole. But this hill over here has 125 yards, and this hill over here has another 150 yards. Well, if I put these 2 hills here, I can fill that hole over here. So you get to have control of where you're grabbing your dirt from. And again, from the standpoint of logistics, you don't want to go get dirt from a half mile away to go to fill this hole in. You want to get that dirt from as far or as nearby as we possibly can. Second item of note that goes with that, so many of these ditches that have been put in were put in on the 40 rod system. So every 40 rods, we're going to put a straight line ditch running north-south, running east-west. And then because they were sitting in their cat or in their versatile and, gear 1, 2, driving at 1.3 miles an hour and dumping the dirt 100 feet away from the ditch and turning and coming back in and cutting and 100 feet away from the ditch. You see it on the ditches all the time that there's a ditch that was put in and then there's hills on each side of the ditch. And again, most common thing that I see where we put these ditches in and stuff, it would have been great if that soil would have been hauled over another 500 feet and put in between, and now we would have had a mound running it down to the ditch. But again, you guys that have built maps in the Red River Valley have all seen this happen over and over again. So, but some other tools in there. There's some other tools in there that are just really, really interesting. With there's a morph tool, and when you get towards the end of the project, it gets rid of every little pixel up, down, and it gets rid of, if you will, what we call little dams in the process, and it lets you get so that the water has a way to exit the field without having any dams on there. And again, it's a minor, if you will, finishing tool, but it's super cool because you run it and all of a sudden you're trying to run it and get flow patterns to run and nothing's working. You run the morph tool and all of a sudden everything works. And it's like super cool.
And it's just getting rid of like the micro stuff in your design that's inhibiting the actual water from going where it's supposed to go. Almost like a smoothing tool in a sort of a way, except that it's just putting together, literally morphing, if you will, everything together in a smooth sort of a way.
Exactly. So that there's just has some weird names to some of the buttons, but the morph tool is super cool. There's another fill percentage, and that fill percentage portion. So you get a design built, and it says that over in this spot you need a foot of fill. Well, anyone who's ever been around soil and tried to fill a hole, that you got the soil settling component of it. And again, you can decide what ratio that is and what methods you're using for doing your filling methods. But then you can say, oh, I want to give myself 20% extra fill in that area. So when you get all your plan done, you come back and run that tool on it, and basically it multiplies all your values on the fill side, not on the cut side, but on the fill side, it adds it by 20%.
Okay, I want to talk about this again because we were talking about this yesterday when we were out in the field, and I think this fill concept for quote unquote fluffy soil it is so cool. Okay, I'm not making this up, but okay, we all know that soil is sand, silt, and clay, right? And they've got different size particles. We all know that soil's got different aggregation. We all know that we end up with different pore space, different amount of air in there at different times, different compaction levels. And so really, this fill concept of allowing for a little bit more fill is allowing for that difference so that when you get that settling going on, you don't end up with a pond or a depression where you were trying to fill in a depression. So you should be able to sort of like think that through, right?
For sure. And making the point, would you got a pile of sand and you dig it up and you set it back down, and you dig it up and you set it back down, your fill compaction ratio is maybe going to be 5%, maybe 10%. it will settle a little bit. You put a little water to it, you put a little vibration to it, and pack it down or tamp it down. It'll go down a little bit. But all of a sudden, you take a heavy Fargo clay and you go dig it up and disturb it, and try to put it back into a pile again. And again, depending on the condition it's in, man, you dug up a foot deep of dirt, and now when you try to stack it up again, you got a foot and a half of dirt. And
that is just so cool. I don't care who you are. That's awesome.
But it gets really tricky from the standpoint of what methodology are you moving your dirt around by. So if you're picking it up with a scraper and setting it back down versus dragging it around with a box blade, there's all kinds of different components here. If you're dragging it around with a scraper, maybe you want to have a 50% fill, because you got these pore spaces, big pore spaces in between there, and they aren't really getting compacted. And again, there's just all kinds of stuff here. And I'm going to tell you flat out, at the end of the day, do I have an answer for what that right number is for, any one of those scenarios? No, I do not. I don't know exactly what that right number is for what that fill ratio percentage is going to be when you get to that point. But it's going to be a learning. It's going to be a little bit of a learning thing, because that same Fargo clay in a dry condition versus a wet condition could be totally different values.
Yeah, and every field has a different, just bulk density in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're using different equipment, that's going to change how that soil works up and how that moves and how much space it takes up and how it settles. And like we were mentioning yesterday too, right? Before and after a rain, if it's a Fargo clay and you've got clumps, it's going to have a different way that it's going to want to settle. But if it rains, those clumps look a lot different, and you have a much different volume of the soil than before it was clumps. So yeah, it's going to take experimenting, but this gives you the control to actually calculate for that and save you some time, hopefully, of having to go back and put more fill material where things settled out over time when you were filling stuff in the field.
Yeah. And I realistically, I've even seen this on ditches that we cut that are 0.5, less than 0.5 grades, but where you come across a headland where that bulk density is increased because of traffic patterns and stuff like that. But then we have these wonderful, sling swell clays that we have in the around this area, and all of a sudden you cut this beautiful ditch when it was nice and dry out there, and then all of a sudden you get just a little bit of rain on it, and why is that ditch that was working beautifully? I got that first little bit of rain that ran off beautifully, and the next rain came through and it's not flowing anymore, and that soil swelled more on the headland than it did out in the field. So it's making a dam at the end of the ditch, and you see it all the time. And people come back and say, "Well, it looked good the first day after that first rain, but now it it seems like did something blow in there? Did what happened?" And that's exactly what happened. And again, it's not that it's put a foot dam at the end of the ditch, but it swelled just another half inch more.
Smectitic clays, engineers' worst nightmares since ever. And just to comment quick on these buttons and what they do for anybody that is curious of wanting to use these buttons in ADMS right now. I'll just say it was enlightening me, or it's enlightening for me to remember that, when we're working with LiDAR data in ADMS and using these buttons to modify things, what we're trying to do is we're trying to modify pixels, and those pixels are a data point or a number, right? So these buttons help us change the numbers across the field in order to achieve what we want. So I don't know. I just like to remember, to remind people that what we're doing is we're modifying those numbers. And I don't know, for me, that helps me simplify, when it looks like there's a lot of buttons, just remember we're just doing some math here. and making changes, yeah, which probably isn't even simpler either. But
more importantly, Jody, is remember for all you ADMS users, jump online and check out the online videos. All these surface buttons and stuff are very, very well documented in both the user manual and also on the ADMS online website too. So,
that is the nice thing about it having been quote unquote out for 3 years. I guess my question now is, the component you mentioned before in the first episode that to get these things done, we need to have, the equipment and the controller to control the machine, but then we also need to have that map in the background. And so we have the software available to do it. We can make these maps. Can you tell us a little bit more about when we might be able to, or like when we should be looking for this controller from Russ Sales? And then, is there an official name for the controller? And then when we might be able to get these in our tractors at home?
For sure. A couple items go along with that. First and foremost, before we even jump into the dates, remember the system for it to work. You go buy the system, and yay, look, I bought some hardware. The hardware really just makes the machine go up and down. We need the map to make it drive. So if you're looking at doing this mapping component that we're talking about is the essential component to make it do what it needs to do. The controller that we're talking about and that we're going to be finishing up with here, the controller part doesn't make the maps. It receives the map. It's no different than the variable rate controller for your planting and seeding and fertilizing. Those controllers don't magically make a variable rate map for you. You need to supply them with data. So this is much more along that concept where the ditching and tiling stuff people have bought in the past, they go out in the field, drive it, survey it, and cut a ditch. Doesn't do any of that stuff. The controller is going to need a plan to go in the background.
And you just kind of said this, okay? But with people who have done drainage in the past, you go out and you don't need to have a map in the back. People who have, purchased surface drainage maps from us have enjoyed that product as a background map, but they haven't necessarily needed that in order to do drainage. But you will not be able to do surface shaping without a map. It will have to have a map because that is essentially what is controlling the equipment.
Yep, and it's exactly like your variable rate controllers from that standpoint. Again, they don't make the variable rate maps for you. They just read what you give them for data. So, I mean, it's a good parallel there that, hey, look, I got a variable rate controller. But it doesn't variable rate.
But the only thing that's different with a variable rate controller is a lot of times you can actually make that a flat rate. You can just shut off the variable rate and then you're doing flat rate, right? There is no way to do a flat rate with this. There's no way to operate this without a map.
Well, technically, you could go in there and just set it to a flat grade and go drive and cut on a flat grade.
You could just use the hydraulics with the box scraper, but yeah.
Oh, but then you're doing land. But then you're doing land leveling, right? Yeah.
It's nothing exciting. Yeah. It's not doing, I mean, we're not doing land shaping, if you will. So, I mean, it would have some really basic, again, you could do that, but it's really, really, again, you're back to just controlling, making a flat grade, or you're setting it to a whatever. So again, you could do that if that was all you wanted to do. You can do that part of it, but make the point if you want to do what we're really speaking about here, you need the maps to make it drive. Second item that we were getting into though, we need the maps to make it drive. Once you've got that, we're looking at releasing. The product is going to be called ADMS Surface. And right now our plan is we're hoping to have it released somewhere around mid-September, around the Big Iron time. Russ Sales has a booth out at Big Iron, and we're hoping to be releasing around Big Iron time. The end result of it is that it's going to be for those people. I don't know anything on pricing. I don't know anything on those components right now. But basically, if you are running SD ditch, it's going to be basically an upgrade for SD ditch. SD tile or SD Surface has a ditch module built into it, so you can toggle between surface shaping and then turn off surface shaping and go back and just do regular ditching functions also.
That's very cool. And, you mentioned that we don't have pricing available, but I just want to remind our entire audience out there that good water management in a field doesn't cost, it pays.
Amen.
It's okay. It does, though.
It does.
I mean, it does. And every farmer that's out there listening to this right now is laughing. It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, when you start looking at the numbers of what lost, revenue gains and stuff like that, it pays for itself time and time and time again. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Amen.
So and last items for you guys on this. The parts on when you hit the field, all of this stuff is RTK based, sold through Russ Sales. The parts and components that you're going to be needing on there, you'll be needing an RTK system. You can use their RTKs. You can buy their RTKs. You can use your existing RTK systems. The hardware and stuff that's inside the cab, we can use slope sensors if you want to control your blade left to right, if you got the ability to do that on your equipment. There's some hardware components there. We talked to pretty much most of the modern tractors. You may have to add in some external valves. The guys out at Rust are going to tell you what you need and don't need for that side of it. But realistically, this pretty much is going to tie into any scraper, any blade type systems, and do everything that you want to do. So,
and I do think it's important to give a big shout out to Russ Sales. We want to talk about like what customer service is. Holy buckets. Those guys do a great job of taking care of customers all over the place. And so if you really want help getting this thing set up, getting it to work right, highly suggest, giving them a shout, because they're super awesome to work with.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And a reminder to everybody out there too, and I'm going to say this, I don't care if you're talking about a planter, a fertilizer applicator, or a scraper setup, but if you try to get a hold of John Deere in case in the middle of you're sitting at the end of the field, the odds of getting that technician out to your field today on, May 1st, when you're trying to get your planter going, probably going to have to wait a little bit to get a hold of somebody or get somebody out there. So when you're getting your scrapers and stuff ready here, when you're getting equipment ready to go to the field, if you wait till August 15th, August 20th, you're probably going to be waiting a little while to get somebody. So, right now is a really good time. Reminder to everybody, July, is a really good time to go through that stuff. Check out all your hardware, check stuff out, make sure it's all talking. It really is. You may hook up to it and unhook from it, but just make sure your stuff is all up to date. If you wait till you're sitting at the end of the field, again, everybody's support gets a little tough to have somebody out there when everybody waits till August 20th to go to the field.
That's a great reminder, Kelly. And again, thank you so much for your time today, sharing with us the new tool in surface shaping. And no, we are really looking forward to this as a company, and we think that this will really fit with what our customers are looking for and what they need. And so as you move forward with this, reach out. For those of you that want to use this as a software package and makes maps for folks for when, the controller's out later this year, give us a call. We're happy to chat about it and continue to help digitize what you want done in your fields and get it done. So again, thanks for listening today, everybody. And remember, with GK Technology, we have a map
and an app
for that.
No, I can't wait to get in the fields again.
Let the geeks at GK Technology help you with your agricultural data. Their agronomists know agriculture. When it comes to creating soils and zone maps to maximize yields in your fields, you can trust the people with decades of experience in site-specific agriculture. Everyone at GK Technology has a background in agriculture, so they know what makes a farm run, and they speak your language. The geeks at GK Technology have a map and an app for that.